No, really.
You know what? Yeah, this looks like the what you'd find in a motherfucking parasite world on Minecraft, bruh. The escape and run parasites. This is what I'd expect those motherfucking parasite trees to
This
look like.
thing was covered in endless amounts of grasping tentacles and rows of spines that could have shredded anything that it made contact with. And remember those openings I was talking about? Well, turns out they were
Those were
trypophobia
mouths.
worthy biological windows, so to speak, that varied
The
in
what?
size and in life would have been filled with organic matter. Now what they did is not known, but I sure hope for its neighbor's sake that they
Oh my god, this looks like a fucking
didn't have
cursed
anything
pea
to do with
shooter.
eating.
What's good, everybody? It's KV the Demon, back with another video. Today we got the strangest extinct creatures ever found. And low-key, I'm like, I feel like I've seen this thing before on another video about prehistoric creatures. I just can't remember what this is. And honestly, I think it's better that I don't know what this is, but you know, we gonna check it out. Okay, there's a lot of cool creatures that are extinct now that low-key we should maybe not try and bring back, but low-key, if they were brought back, it'd be kind of fire. Like Tasmanian devils. I don't think they're extinct now, but I know they were considered extinct for a while. And when they were, bruh, I was low-key sad. I wanted to see one so bad, and now they're back. So you know, hey, all I'm saying is sometimes maybe bringing like a few animals back isn't so bad, bro. Maybe it isn't so bad. Like, we could really do a lot, bro. We could bring back woolly mammoths. I think we're already doing.
Vital Farms farmers are up early every day for their hens.
I hate motherfucking ads, but low key. Alright, let's hear it out.
Do you like waiting for your breakfast?
Vital Farms. Good eggs, no shortcuts.
I guess there's ad just shows the chickens are
None of these work for me.
a good area. Low-key, I want y'all opinions. Does having chickens and like animals in like better environments, you know, where they're allowed to move a lot more and like eat more like grass and like natural shit, is their meat actually better? Pause. I just want to say pause first because I know. Is their meat like actually like does it actually like taste better? Because I hear people say that, but Loki, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's
To
true.
become fossilized is such an extremely
It
rare
sounds like it
thing
makes
that we
sense.
can only dream it will happen to one sharing the planet with us. So it's not hard to see why fossils still end up
Yeah,
being very numerous,
quintillions. That
and
is a
entire
lot.
industries
That's a
exist around
lot
them.
of
And
motherfucking
yet, given their
animals.
sheer total numbers, fossil finds typically
If you really
happen to be
think about
rather
it, bro,
normal in the
if you really think about it, there's likely so many different animals on Earth. We don't even have a number for that for real. Like maybe we do have a number for it, but low key we can never be too sure. We still haven't explored the ocean too much, so who knows all the shit that's down there. What's there? Yo, every day, if you ever search up on like on Google, Firefox if you use it, Microsoft Edge if you use it, if you ever search on those, you'll see that we're still discovering like new species every day. So like it's kind of crazy that there's so many species on this planet.
sense that we've seen them before. And even when they do represent a new species, they generally fall under something we've already dealt with. For example, a new
Is
dinosaur
that a
represent a new species, they generally fall
Carnosaurus? I
under
want to
something we've
say.
already dealt with. For example, a new dinosaur being some species of hadrosaur. It's really quite seldom that we do actually make a discovery that is both new and mind-boggling. But it has happened more than once, and there are a few animals that have left
I didn't even know that
paleontologists
was
pretty
turned
much
down.
just scratching their heads, unsure of what they've stumbled upon, even to this.
Yo, Komodo dragons are low key my favorite fucking animal ever. One of Komodo dragons and sharks, I think, are like my two favorite animals. And y'all gonna call me crazy for saying that Komodo dragons and sharks are two of my favorite animals. Also, low key, spiders are up there. The spiders are low key like up there in my top five. Y'all are gonna call me crazy for saying that, but there's a lot of countries who like hippos, which are known killers. There's a lot of countries who also like tigers, which are also known killers. So all I'm saying is, if they can have their national animal be a literal motherfucking, like, I'm pretty sure India, who has either the hippo or the tiger one, their animal literally like kills so many of them a day. Like, so many people die to them animals a day, but people don't care about that. It just looks cool.
day. And there's perhaps no better case than this.
Holy shit! What the fuck is this? This looks like one of them rejected, like, you look like what was once probably Gary the Snail. Is this like Gary's cousin? Gary the Snail's like inbred motherfucking cousin, bruh. That was way too loud. Holy shit. That wasn't even the right one I was trying to click, so.
And the
Bits
Tully
ruined.
Monstrum, lovingly nicknamed the Tully Monster. And Monster
Tully
honestly might
yeah.
be the closest you'll get
It even sounds like a off-brand Teletubby. Goddamn. The Tully Monster.
to figuring out what this thing was.
What does it do, though?
Because it was not only terrifying and crazy looking, but also confusing. Its modern story started all the way back in 1966, when an amateur collector was exploring the Carboniferous Mason Creek Formation in Illinois. During his expedition, he stumbled upon not one, but multiple strange fossils that he could tell were organisms, but of
I was gonna say something really stupid. You know what? I'm gonna just say it, bro. I was gonna say, you don't really hear too many things about like the 1960s. But then I remembered the Vietnam War, and I was like, oh yeah, that happened too.
what kind, he had no clue. And even after collecting a few and studying them more closely, he still could not gather a guess. So he decided to get an expert's opinion and take them to the Field Museum of Natural History. But to his surprise, they were just as stumped as he was, being absolutely perplexed by the odd features of this new creature, which included a cigar-like body, triangle fins, long stalked eyes, and a proboscis-tipped mouth.
Alright, so clearly it was some kind of octopus. I hope I'm right. Otherwise, it's gonna be like maybe the early version of a shark, maybe like a hammerhead shark. I don't know. Its eyes kind of look like that.
Making it kind of look like an animal straight out of Subnautica, a horrifying one at that, with the only saving grace being its small stature, with most
Yeah, could definitely see that.
of the
Definitely being
fossils
like
being
a
under 35
like a creature from
centimeters
Subnautica.
or 14 inches long. Now, unsurprisingly, its sheer oddness attracted a lot of attention.
bro. Just imagine seeing this fucking thing IRL. You're
Both
swimming,
domestically and internationally.
bro. Oh my god! Imagine being at the beach. You motherfucking you're chilling out on the beach. Maybe you got like some sunscreen on you. Maybe you with like your friends or like your family. You out there sitting around doing nothing, bro. And then all of a sudden, out of the motherfucking depths, you see this motherfucking creature just out there roaming. It's not even like harming you. It's not like it's near you or anything. It's just kind of like doing its own thing. But imagine being there to see this thing, bro. Like, horrifying. I would actually be so terrified.
And yet, even then, with many researchers looking at it, no one could come up with a good idea of what it was. With different guesses, including that it was a mollusk, arthropod,
Mollusk,
conodont,
arthropod.
worm, tunicate, or just some kind of vertebrate. The only thing they could really all agree upon was that it almost certainly lived in water, as though Illinois is nicknamed the
Actually, it's kind of crazy that worms have their like own category. So when people think of worms, you think of like earthworms. You don't think of like all the other like real deal crazy worms out there.
location is, seeing that, literally 98% of all animals fall under it. And along the way, while a few have claimed to have
Oh, for real? Hold
leading
up.
to its multiple groupings, and the idea that it was free swimming. In other words, not clamped to the seafloor or any structure. And from then to now, nearly 90 years later, we really don't know much more. Heck, we've pretty much only concluded that they are bilaterians, which honestly doesn't say much
Animal characterized by bilateral symmetry during embryonic development. Okay. Oh, bilateral. I'm such a fucking idiot. That's it. Oh my god, bro. Oh my fucking god, bro. Are we kidding me? I don't even know what I said, bro. Bilateral. Okay. What does this thing eat?
considering how immensely broad this classification is.
You know what? We really gotta thank evolution, bruh. Because if you really think about it, you could have been born as this thing. Imagine that. You could have been born as an ant. You could have been born as a fly. Instead, you got born as a human with a conscious. You can think, buddy. You can go out and make your own choices. You're not just tied down by animal instinct. You can actually make any choice you want. You're not a fucking starfish who doesn't have eyes or anything, just roams around. You're not like this thing, which is butt ugly and has a fucking arm for a mouth, you know? You be grateful. Be grateful, everybody, that you weren't born
Seeing that,
like this.
literally 98% of all animals fall under it. And along the way, while a few have claimed to have figured this strange creature out, nothing has stuck. But on the bright side, we do think we know a bit more about its lifestyle now, with scientists suggesting that its odd mouth rendered it a carnivore who hunted in the ocean's water columns and preferred muddy waters. But beyond that, the dude's a mystery.
Damn, low key, bro. I know I'm going on rants every 24 seconds, but I'm gonna make this rant short. I'm gonna make this rant short. It is very, very, very like you just have to be very grateful that we live in the time that we do now, and also that we live in a time where creatures like that don't exist anymore. Because when people say that real life is often weirder than fiction, bro, they do be right. Because you could find some weird ass shit in motherfucking real life, like this thing. I forget what it's called now, but you
And
know.
oddities out of the US of A do not end in Illinois, as it was in Montana that a fossil was located in the
And it was in
70s,
Chicago,
which was
damn.
so unlike anything seen before that it was simply dubbed an alien
Chicago was weird before, it's still weird now.
goldfish. This was the Typhlosis.
This may be the last ad you ever see. Because with the free ad block extension from Capital One Shopping, you can say goodbye to ads on sites like YouTube.
Shout out by Ad Blocker though, bruh. But we have
This
to keep that
remarkable
shit pushing.
find came out of the Bear Gulch
Let me see this. I can't even really like get to watch.
fish. This was the Typhlosis.
Maybe like plankton, like some plankton type deal. Nah, that's connected though. Maybe like a clam. This looks like something like a clam, like a geoduck. If y'all ever seen those.
This remarkable find came out of the Bear Gulch Limestone Formation, and happened to be even more ancient than the Tully
Okay, that's a better picture. What the fuck is this? What is
researchers that it actually went underreported for a very long time, as no one wanted to deal with the headache of trying to figure out what it was. And the only real lead they had
Damn,
was
it's
that its
small.
body was swindle-shaped, teeny
Pause.
tiny,
That's-
and possessed one single tail at the end, suggesting like our friend Tully, it could swim on its own. But besides this, nada. Well, actually there was more, but it really only set scientists back more, adding just head-aching
Really?
amounts of confusion, as it had no other exterior appendages, lacked a midsection, or anus, and literally had an organ that was never seen before or since, which is now
What?
dubbed a Pharodiscus.
Damn. The first and only motherfucking organism. Hold on. I just realized. He said no anus. No arms, no legs, no face, no balls, no anus, because you probably eat radiation, bro. Like, I forget how that meme goes. But y'all know how it goes, bro. No anus though, bro. Like, pause again. I might have to blur that out. I'm not even gonna lie. But okay, wait. This is all YouTube, just to make sure. This is all motherfucking educational, you know, all educational. It's all educational. We learn about animals and shit. Having no anus is kind of weird because, like, what do you do with your waste? Now, granted, there are animals who have like one exterior that they eat and then they poop out of, but you don't like usually even if it's only like one opening, they still call it like a mouth and a anus too. So not having one is kind of crazy. Let's see what the
And yeah,
spherodiscus is.
we have no clue of what it does, except that it
Okay then, never
held
mind. I
high
guess.
concentrations of iron. And so, what do you do when something is very old
held a
and
lot of
super
iron.
strange? Well, you find an
Okay.
equally bizarre family, and then cram it in there. In this case, the conodonts, a group of jawless vertebrates found virtually
Oh! 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 Oh my god. This might be the. Okay, I'm not even gonna lie. I've never been disturbed by much, but this is like one of the few first things that has ever legitimately made me like scream like that. Oh my fucking god. Is what is that? What the fuck is that? Are those teeth? Are those ribs? Are those just claws that he's got? What the fuck is that? That is a great thumbnail, though. I'm not even gonna lie. This might be the thumbnail for the video, bruh. Low key, that might have to be the thumbnail for the video.
you do when something is
I'ma
very old
just-
and super strange. Well,
Give me a
you
moment,
find an
guys.
equally
Give me a
bizarre
moment. Give
family,
me a
and then
moment.
cram
Give
it
me
in
a
there.
moment.
In this case, the conodonts, a group of jawless vertebrates found virtually everywhere. And this claim wasn't too outlandish, as paleontologists have been thrown a bone after discovering a brand new specimen with conodont-like teeth, a great sign that it might have been one after all. And briefly, scientists were able to take a breather. However, things were soon upended, as one researcher realized these teeth did not belong to the alien goldfish, but rather represented something it ate, as they were located in its guts, and thus putting us back to square one, except with the added information that we're now pretty sure it was
okay.
a carnivore. Sadly, this new info remained the only update on Typhlosis for 3 decades. But it was
For three-
finally interrupted by a groundbreaking statement in 2022 that Typhlosis was maybe, not for sure, but just maybe, a, drumroll please, mollusk. Now, you may want to sit down for this part, but this
It's a motherfucking octopus.
claim came after the discovery that it had a toothy tongue that it shot at prey from its, guts. Yeah, sounds kind of out there.
Like the motherfucking cone snail, right? I know the cone snail does that too.
Yet it turns out that some animals today do something a bit like this, namely again our friend the mollusks, with their tongue-like structures.
Also, I said, bro, I'm actually fucking stupid. I called a mollusk, called an octopus a mollusk, bro. Mollusks, snails, and slugs and shit like that. My fault. My fault.
Called radulas, and thus leading to our friend Typhlosis being linked to them. Only problem is though, that it also has turned out that radulas have evolved independently in non-mollusks too. So in other words, it may be too early to say what this blob-like cretin really was. This is definitely one of the hardest cases to crack out there at the moment, but hey, at least it's a solo job, as sometimes puzzling fossils come in pairs, and actually in this case, came from the same place as the Tully monster, the Mason Creek Formation. It was here that 2 different
Okay.
fossil discoveries were made that stumped people enough that the best analogies they could come up with was to explain them with a literal alphabet, specifically 2 letters. These fossils would eventually be named Aetachistus and Escumasia, and though not really related, they have become known together as the H and Y animals, respectively. Aetachistus, the H one, was arguably the weirder of the two
Okay. This.
in the looks department, and it really did resemble the letter H, with a weird growth in the middle of it. Now, unsurprisingly, we know very little on why it was shaped like this, or what the functions of its limbs were, yet researchers guess it might have fed on free-floating particles and organisms, and was likely a colonial
So, like
animal that
jellyfish
grew
and
for the
shit.
entirety of its
So, like
life,
sponges.
evidenced
Okay.
by specimens widely varying in size. And besides coming in different sizes, they also seem to have come in different shapes. Have fun, as that sac which stuck out could be circle-shaped, heart-shaped, and perhaps some other shapes.
Damn, y'all got all the shapes of the motherfucking in the world, bro. Yeah, imagine seeing a heart. Well, technically, this is kind of a heart-shaped one
So it
if
really
you really
depended
think
on the
about it.
specific individual. And while this is a very big if, researchers think that of all the phylums, it's most probable that Edacystis belonged to the Hemichordata, which includes things like acorn worms and taro branches. But ironically, its fellow alphabet buddy, the Y-shaped Escamacea, looked in a way more tame than H, but has been so far more problematic, at least taxonomically. This is mainly because it bears some strong similarities to sea anemones, but it has things you don't find in the group, such as bilateral symmetry, a complete gut, and get this, a butt,
complete gut.
and thus upending
butt?
any inclination that we knew what it was. And for now, we can
Pause.
only say that it was a animal, who also had a mouth, mind you, that came in the form of a large slit in between its so-called arms. Yet what these arms did is unknown, and frankly,
Honestly, it was kind of crazy. Niggas had a whole gut and butt in that thing, bro. I don't even know it no more, bro. Loki, these are cool though. Like these are some cool animals. I'm not even gonna lie. I think so far, my favorite, might Loki. This thing looks weird as fuck. It looks cool, but it looks too. It just looks fucking weird.
so-called arms. Yet what these arms did is unknown, and frankly, they might not even be arms. But something we do know is that less than 20%
WA, go subscribe. Go subscribe to Extinct Zoo, bruh. Let me make sure let me make sure I practice what I preach. Practice what I preach, bro. Loki, all of these animals look like something you would see in like an adventure game. Like if I could see Skyrim having some of these
and contained
creatures,
life so problematic
that look
that
like this.
researchers simply ended up grouping them all together, and that is the Ediacaran biota. As its name
Ediacaran
implies,
biota.
this group is from the very ancient Ediacaran period, which transpired between 635 and
I was never gonna guess that, bro. I'm not even gonna lie. Like you said something that was I would have never guessed any of these. Never. This is just
538.8
too
million
far
years
back
ago,
for me.
and represents the first time when fossils clearly depicting macroscopic life became common. Many weird and basically unknown things lived during this time, but one of the stranger genera to emerge, which is saying something, was a thing that I can only describe. But one of
Alright. So clearly, this was taken somewhere in like after 2006. What the fuck is
the
this?
stranger genera to
And also, I can clearly see that it's clearly in the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean, which I will not be going. Or mostly because there's shit like this down there too, but also water pressure and drowning.
emerge, which is
I don't
saying
want nothing to do
something,
with it,
was
bro.
a thing that I can only describe as looking like an Elden Ring's boss if it was a tree made of
Yeah.
flesh, which might actually
Yeah.
be a thing. So, but one of the stranger genera to emerge, which is
definitely
saying
looks like
made of flesh,
that.
which might actually be a thing. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to Namacalathus, a being that is essentially the combo of some of the most horrifying traits ever. When its fossil was first unearthed, people could only conclude that it resembled something you'd expect an alien to live in, given its openings at the top. Yet beyond this, they had no clue what they stumbled upon. It did kind of resemble a tree, like I said.
I want you to know all these look like this looks like the fucking dude from Spooky's House of Jump Scares. That one dude who follows you around of like around 50. Low-key, all of these look like something you'd find scratched onto a wall to warn you about a monster in Spooky's House of Jump Scares. Like this, all four of the top ones, I want nothing to do with them. Absolutely
Though at the same
nothing.
time, when examining the materials of its so-called trunks, they realized that in life they would have been calcified. So in other words, this was no
Oh.
tree, and rather an animal, and represented the oldest evidence we have of a skeleton. And lo and behold,
The oldest evidence of a motherfucking skeleton is a living organism that looks like a tree.
eventually fossils representing what covered its body were located, which
Yo, isn't it crazy that things that you'd never expect them to be what they are? Like the first like technical like trees that we ever had were fungus. Just giant stalks of motherfucking fungus. Something you'd see like I forget what game it's called. I forget what game it's called. But if you ever seen what those like fungus like trees look like, that's if you know what game I'm talking about, you know. For something to be made out of pure bone and to be the first thing, you got to realize that means that the thing that this is made out of is the thing that is making up our bones, all bones. This was the first evidence of a motherfucking skeleton, a tree, what looked to be a tree with motherfucking tentacles on it or hair or something. I don't know what these are. This looks like something you find and made it in the abyss. I hate this.
only served to
I
make
don't
it
like this.
stranger and more nightmarish. Because as it turns out,
Oh.
Namathalathus was a real-life monster.
Bro,
No, really.
you know what? Yeah, this looks like what you'd find in a motherfucking parasite world on Minecraft, bruh. The escape and run parasites. This is what I'd expect those motherfucking parasite trees to
This
look
thing
like.
was covered in endless amounts of grasping tentacles and rows of spines that could have shredded anything that it made contact with. And remember those openings I was talking about? Well, turns out they were
Those were mouths.
trypophobia-worthy biological windows, so to speak, that varied
The
in
what?
size and in life would have been filled with organic matter. Now what they did is not known, but I sure hope for its neighbor's sake that they
Oh my god, this looks like a fucking
didn't have
cursed
anything
pea
to do
shooter.
with eating. And to just make it a bit more, but I sure hope for
Do you
in
see,
life
yo,
would have been filled with organic matter. Now what they did is not known, but I sure hope for its neighbor's sake that they didn't have
the
anything to do with
motherfucking
eating.
cursed pea
And to just
shooter,
make it
bro,
a bit
I'm
more of an
taking that.
oddball, it turns out that these windows didn't just come in circle shape, but virtually every strange shape you can imagine, including, but not limited to, a heart, the moon, hexagons, heptagons, and so forth.
It's kind of crazy how much like natural shapes take form in like life. Like you can find different shapes everywhere. And it's crazy to think that not only do we humans know about these shapes, but animals know about these shapes. Animals that have never probably that don't even have the concept of motherfucking of what shapes are, probably can recognize what certain shapes look like just because they're found so much in nature, which I think is cool. The double hexagon, that makes up our DNA. I think that's just cool as fuck. That shit
Oh,
looks
and
nice.
did I mention that I could adjust its size based on where it lived and basically pop up just about anywhere? Well, yeah.
So basically, like the motherfucking jellyfish of the sea, because jellyfish, or no, coral, like coral reefs, which can pop up anywhere. Basically, like coral reefs.
It
Think,
could.
I hope.
Though, naturally, given its terrifying appearance, it did have a preference for living in the abyss. Like literally, the abyssal plane.
Yeah, literally everything that looks scary lives in the abyss, which is why we don't go.
But now to the important question. With all this said and done, what was it? Visually, one could argue it looked most like a coral, gone very, very wrong.
Yeah,
However, in
coral
classic
reef,
strange
since it
fossil
shows up
fashion,
everywhere.
a study on it found it to have been too complex to have been a coral. And so honestly, we aren't sure
Okay.
what it is. Pretty much the only thing we do know is that it was alive and looked very, very freaky.
I'd say it was something that was alive, but clearly it died, and probably died for a very good reason. Imagine if this was. I'm getting mad hiccups. Imagine if this was in our fucking oceans right now. We just had to deal with these, and you already said all over. That means every sea, every motherfucking coral reef, you're gonna find one of these motherfuckers. I would never go to a beach again. Swear to God. Fuck that. So, hey, maybe it's good that this one died. Don't bring this one back. You can keep this
Now,
one.
while not to the same degree, many other life forms from this time also fit in this what the heck is it category, including things like the enigmatic Dickinsonia, which looked basically like a
enigmatic-
rug
oh,
you
yeah,
would find in your bathroom, only this thing lived and moved as well. And funnily enough,
Yo, I low-key be seeing these everywhere. If you've ever seen like a video where it's talking about fossils, you'll low-key see this somewhere. You'll see it somewhere in the video. You just never know what the fuck it is. And I'm glad they're going into this. I'm glad he's going into what this is.
there were actually a lot of strange mat animals from this time, which we still haven't figured out, like Vendia or Sperginia. In fact, there were so many that we've ended up just grouping them together in a single proposed phylum, the Proarticulata.
Oh, so there's a lot of them. Okay, no wonder you see them everywhere then. I'm guessing they're arthropods? No, not arthropods. Or would they be? Because they're soft-shelled arthropods too, so...
Together, members belonging to this group have given us plenty, and I mean plenty, of bizarre fossils over the years. And yet, despite their diversity and abundance, we still can't say how they exactly relate to other animals, with pretty much our only assumption being that they were in fact animals. And it's not just their taxonomy which is a mystery, but their morphology and ways of life are also highly subjected to debate, with no
I mean, that's just literally everything. Technically, we still don't really know what the dinosaurs actually looked like. Like, I swear to God, the dinosaurs be getting a new variation of what that dinosaur could have looked like each year. And even then, it's still all speculation. We really don't know what these animals look like. We're going off our best interpretation of what they were. Unless we actually got like a motherfucking like portal to time travel with, I don't think we'll ever know what these creatures look like or what they ate and stuff like that. Cause it's just it was so long ago. 65 million years, bro. I feel like after 100 million years, even a fossil wouldn't be there anymore. Like most fossils don't hold up that well. Well, they do, but most things that get preserved don't hold up that well. So even then, fossils are just bones that have been replaced with rock. So even then, we don't really know what.
concrete hypothesis universally agreed upon. And one
I
thing
don't
to
know what I'm
me
talking
that is quite infuriating is despite looking like perfect symmetrical beings, they are actually known for being slightly asymmetrical, as one side does not mirror the other. Take a look at this. See how the lines don't line up? Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. And another interesting thing about them is they might not even have left any descendants behind, which if was the case, means that they are evolutionary dead ends. But honestly, good riddance.
Honestly, good riddance. I don't think these things would have ever made it. I don't think they would have ever made it, bro. Even though jellyfish technically made it, and technically jellyfish probably shouldn't be around either, because their jellyfish are bad in general. Their stings hurt, but that's really all they do, bro. They just only cause problems. I feel like sometimes creatures die off, and that's just what it's supposed to be, bro. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if they're gone or not. It happened so long ago that it's not worth bringing them back. So I say good riddance. If evolution clearly didn't let them continue on whatever they were doing, then it wasn't meant to happen, bruh. It just wasn't
Now I
meant to
know the
happen.
one-upping of the weirdness is probably coming quite repetitive, but, and it's a big but, there is somehow another period that holds an edge over all others in unanswered questions, the Rhycean. Now to get here,
Low-key, there's too many periods of Earth. Because we did not learn these in school. I don't know if y'all have been. I don't know what schools have taught you about like the dinosaurs and shit, but here where I live at least, they really don't be teaching you like you shit about the dinosaurs and shit. Because Loki, is it even worth to really mention? Like, of course, if you're interested in that field, I'd say yeah, it's important. But like even then, it's not really you don't really need to know this. So I can see why it's not taught, but it's low key cool. It's low key cool to hear about this. Hear about
you
the
gotta go
animals that
way
came
back,
before us.
like way back. 2.1 billion years to be exact, when the Earth was a freak show in every sense. I mean, after all, the Rhycean does translate to stream of lava. It was during this time that a certain
Rhycean,
area rose that would
stream
one
of
day
lava?
give birth
That's
to what
kinda
researchers
cool.
have dubbed the Francevillian biota. Specifically, in Gabon, Africa, scientists discovered a large area
Motherfucker, that is such a misleading
Francevillian
name.
biota.
Why would you call it Francevillian biota and then say, "Oh yeah, but we're in Africa"? motherfucking French conquest propaganda, bruh.
shale deposits, which dated to the Ryocene and contained lots and lots of odd structures. Many were a bit disc-like
Fuck is
and were either
that?
circular and
Yo,
contained
this looks like some ancient relic you gotta find in Skyrim, bro. This looks like something you'd give to a motherfucking priest, and he'd be like, "Oh, we gotta destroy this. This is an evil relic, my
lots
nigga."
and lots of odd structures. Many were a bit disc-like and were either circular or elongated. Then, while rarer, subsequent discoveries unveiled other types of structures as well, that included things that were more like tubes, string of pearls, and even something that resembled a flower. And in fact, their forms and characteristics are so perplexing that no one even knows for sure if we can call them fossils. At first, the researchers who discovered the site described them as colonial organisms who were multicellular, and probably eukaryotes. However, not everyone was on board, arguing instead that they weren't alive and rather had been created by inorganic pyrites, or were artifacts of diagenesis. Now, the problem here
So we
was that
don't
the
even
site
know
was
if
over
these things
400
are
million
really,
years
like,
older than the
alive or
previously
not.
known oldest example for multicellular life, so saying that they're eukaryotes is quite the claim. And honestly, studying anything 2 billion years old is exceedingly difficult, especially when trying to determine if that anything was life or not. And since its original findings, the argument has gone back and forth. However, in recent years, most studies seem to support the idea that these structures really were fossils after all, as an isotopic analysis found that they were enriched with zinc, a possible sign of eukaryotic metabolism. And then, just last year, one scientist made the claim that the area contained just the right ingredients for life. So imagine that, a find so confusing that we are only now deciding if we can truly label them as fossils. Ironically though, if it does turn
If I had to imagine, it'd probably be like how we view like actual cells. That's probably how they work. Like how we view actual cells is probably how they move, probably how they ate. Like these were probably really the like first, like you said, multicellular organisms, bro. Not multicellular organism maybe, but it's definitely something. Definitely a cell or something, bro.
out that the Francevillian biota was actually biota, we do already have some ideas on how they might have lived. Given their disc-like shape and lack of locomotion, they probably were not free swimmers. Instead, being planktonic organisms that relied on water columns found in shallow, hot deltas, which were actually a rarity at the time, as Earth was really lacking in land back in those days. The funny thing about this case, though, and the others I mentioned, is that while a lot of confusion has come from strange appearances, there are actually cases where the animal has caused a lot of head scratching, yet actually resembles life we are very familiar with. In other words, let me introduce you to Nectocaris. In 1910,
Now that's
this fossil was discovered in our old friend, the Burgess Shale. At the time, so many fossils were coming out of the place that was essentially buried and forgotten about, yet eventually made its way back to relevancy and was described by an English paleontologist, who explained that this was a completely new mysterious creature that was a bit like a stretched out shrimp, hence its name, Nectocaris, which means the swimming shrimp.
Sunshine came softly through my window today. When you made your mind up.
I'm joking. Let's finish this video.
The man who officially described it was a bit perplexed.
Why the fuck were they shrimp though? That's so dumb. I said octopus, bro. That looks like an octopus. Or some variation of octopus or squid.
Because it did share some similarities with arthropods, but its fins were
Squid,
basically the
pretty much.
opposite of what you'd
Fuck.
expect to see in one. And given the conflicting findings, he was unable to say what it was with confidence, and left it unclassified. But at some point, an Italian paleontologist, curious about its mysterious nature, looked over some photos of the fossils and thought that he had it all figured out, suggesting that it was a chordate, focusing on its tail, fin, and what he called its notochord, a distinctive feature found in this phylum. And this stuck pretty well, for over 20 years actually, until that is, some rather important news came to light. It turns out that the original fossil was no bueno. In other words, incomplete.
What?
And not just a bit,
Oh.
because in 2010, over 91 more specimens in much better condition were uncovered that revealed that it didn't look like a deformed shrimp, but instead more like this, a squid-like creature, which had just 2 tentacles, a flat kite-shaped body, 2 stalked eyes, and then weirdly, no visible mouth or opening, except for a large funnel, which has been touted as a possible reversible proboscis, aka it could turn it inside out. Freaky. Anyways, seeing that it now looked a lot like a cephalopod, you would assume that the mystery was now resolved, and indeed it was proposed that Nyctoceras was a brand new cephalopod, and the first one at that, being 30 million years older than anything known previously. But of course,
Okay.
when there is a new answer, there is bound to be a new problem.
There's bound
In this
to be new
case, its
questions.
appearance went against everything we know about cephalopod evolution. It was kind of
Yeah.
like if a paleontologist found an animal resembling a modern human before, though, any of the most primitive primates had even appeared. So this is why the cephalopod idea was ultimately thrown out. And lo and
Okay, so
behold,
it's not
we
a
are now back to
cephalopod.
square one, with the animal being indeterminate, and the only major update being that in 2019,
Loki, I think the problem with trying to put all these like really old ass creatures that are already gone into a category that was built for modern age creatures is the fact that none of the creatures that a lot of the creatures you're probably going to find out there in the world that lived back then, they're probably not going to be able to really find similarities between them and modern creatures now because there's been so many extinctions, bro. There's been possibly hundreds of thousands of creatures that have gone extinct, millions maybe. So it's kind of hard because not only do you have, there's the creatures that didn't make that don't have no living ancestors now that died all the way back then, went extinct. No more of them. Evolutionary dead end, like he said. There's probably so many creatures like that. And then there's creatures that, survived a couple, but then died or evolved into something that looks completely different. So it's very like back and forth. So Loki, I think Loki, we should just create new classes, bro. I say just create new classes for creatures that we just really that just don't fit anything that we have now. Call that bitch like the unknown or something. Because it doesn't I don't even care. I don't even care.
a very similar fossil was found that was chalked up to being a very close related relative, and thus named Nyctocotis. And together, the two have created the controversial and currently homeless family, the Nyctoceratidae. So, to wrap it
Hey, W video by Extinct Zoo, bruh. W video by Extinct Zoo. But you know.